Tomato tour time. This is Gail from Gail's Gardening, and today we are going to take a tomato tour. Today is June 27th, 2020, and we'll see what changes have gone on in the last 2 weeks. I'm starting in my backyard garden, and the first plant we're going to take a look at is Alice's Dream. Take a look at these tomatoes. So I've got some here, I've got some here, I've got some growing up further. I've got some further down. So we are having a grand old tomato time with Alice's Dream. The plant is producing well and is growing nice. Now these purple stakes that I have on, this is, as I explained in a previous video, I zip tied 2 4-foot stakes together. So these stakes are probably about 7 feet tall. So yeah. Good size. Okay, this one is Tennessee Yellow Cherry, and you can see it's already topped its zip-tied purple poles. So let's see what it has for tomatoes. Okay, so you can see a cluster here. There's one right behind it. I have more up here, and let's go further down. I have some here, some more here, and a couple more trusses down here. So I have a fair amount. Now this is actually less than I expect from a tomato, or excuse me, a cherry tomato plant. But this had kind of a rough start to its growing season, so it's actually doing pretty well. Okay, here is Stormin Norman, and yes, I have more zip-tied purple posts. And let's take a look at the tomatoes on this guy. You can see all the trusses I have, all the extra flowers I have, going down more. Yeah, I have lots of tomatoes on here, and I even have some ripening. So I think that one that's the darkest may actually be ripe already, because they're more of a chocolate colored tomato, but we'll check it out later on. Now on this particular plant, I did do a video just a little while ago about topping and how and why to top a tomato plant. So you may want to check that out if you have a tomato plant like this that may be getting a little out of control. This little guy here is red Brandywine potato leaf. When I planted it a few weeks back, it was about this tall. So now it's had some extra growth and it's starting to form blossoms. So I'm looking forward to seeing more from red Brandywine potato leaf. Now this particular plant is called Earl's Faux. Now these are only 6-foot posts, but you can see it's doing pretty well. Alright, the big thing with this one are the tomatoes. My goodness, this particular truss, if you see it from the other side, has like 6 tomatoes on it. There's another lonely one. Here's some more down here. Looking forward to, oh, if I can get it in focus, this particular one. It's already pretty good size, but it still has more growing to do. So here's a nice one. If I travel up the plant some, you'll see that I have another cluster here, some more here, and I've got plenty more blossoms forming. So looking forward to some nice large pink tomatoes from this plant. This is Rosy Falls. Now I planted this one I guess about 2-3 weeks ago, and it was probably about this tall when I planted it. So you can see that it's grown quite a bit. Again, this one is supposed to be like a basket type tomato, so I'm not sure what the heck I have growing here. This next one is called Cherry Princess Sweet Surprise. It is, I think, probably the only hybrid tomato I have growing, and I actually got this free for a particular order that I placed, so I figured what the heck, I'll try growing it. It's supposed to have, I think, pink, really like miniature cherries. But the plant is anything but miniature at this point. I actually planted this one out last week, and I think it's probably grown at least 2 or 3 inches in that time. Okay, one more plant in the backyard garden. Now this one is called Aussie. I don't remember if you remember, or I don't know if you remember how big it was when we had it in the last video, but it was probably about this big. Yeah, it's grown quite a bit. The leaves, or the branches, are really, really big. And that's not even the biggest branch. I think this is probably the biggest one. And I don't think I can even get it in camera, how big it is. Now, one thing that's really interesting about this one is take a look. Now, granted, this is a fasciated blossom, meaning that it's really two blossoms fused together. But that has a potential for being a giant tomato. And this is also the plant that has the potential to get 3 and 4 pound tomatoes. I am keeping this one to one stem, but I'm going to have a problem with this one because look, it looks like it's developing 3 growing points. I'll have to address that in a future video, but again, this one is Aussie. Alright, now it's time to go off to the side yard. I'm going to start out my side yard with Earl's Faux. So this is the second of my 3 Earl's Faux tomatoes. As you can see, I've got 3 on this one. I've got another 4 on this truss. I've got more forming towards the yardway side. And I've got plenty more blossoms. Now it's, here's the 6-foot pole, so it's getting to be close to the top of it. I do also have it on this side on one of those zip-tied 8-foot poles. So it's doing well. Now, I grow all mine in containers, and take a look at the container this one's in. A 5-gallon plastic bag container. I mean, this is supposed to be a actual container for plants, but 5 gallons, yeah. Okay, next to it, I have my second Blue Beauty. Now, the first Blue Beauty that I had, that I'll show you shortly, had all kinds of problems. It was super stressed. So I did have another plant, and I decided to go ahead and plant it out. This one has a fasciated blossom that is humongous. I'm not sure if I'm going to let this one grow or not because it'll just be a cat-faced tomato, but I think I have little tomatoes down here on this one and this one over here. So 2 tomatoes on this one. Now let's go ahead and see the other plant of the Blue Beauty that I have. This is the other Blue Beauty plant that I had, and this is the one that looks so horribly, horribly stressed in the last video. So what I did is I topped it, and I'm allowing some suckers to grow. Now the suckers are looking much, much better. And you can see that some of the leaves that are coming out are looking much, much better. And some more suckers. But here's the surprise. Okay, you saw these 2 tomatoes last time. Look, I've got a 3rd. And a 4th and a 5th. Now this particular truss of tomatoes only had these 2 guys. These other flowers look like they were just totally aborted. Once I topped the plant and it had extra energy, guess what? I got more tomatoes from this truss. That is something I totally was not expecting. So I'm going to let this Blue Beauty keep on growing. I want to ripen these tomatoes, obviously, and I want to see how well it does compared to its brethren right next door. Here's another Tennessee cherry tomato. So it's a smaller plant, and I just planted it out actually, I think last week, and it's doing pretty well so far. It's starting with its little flower set, so I'm happy with this one. It's looking good so far. Okay, this one is new Big Dwarf. So as the name implies, it's a dwarf tomato. And actually, I do see some flowers starting to form. So I'm looking forward to this one. It's supposed to have big pink fruit for a determinate tomato. Next door to it, I have my Sleeping Lady. She is also a determinate plant. And as you can see, she's got blossoms if I can get them in focus. She's got blossoms here. She's got more up here. Now these are smaller tomatoes and they are chocolate colored, so it'll be interesting. Again, this is a determinate, so it's not going to get much taller than it is right now, which is roughly 2 feet tall. Maybe get another half foot or something, but I'm happy. And this is Sleeping Lady. This is my second Alice's Beauty plant, and yes, more purple zip-tied stakes. Let's take a look closer at this one. Let's see if I can get in here. We have a couple, well, we have one tomato here and I feel one down here. Let's see, on this side of the plant we have more tomatoes. So we have some here, some growing up here. And then as I travel up, we've got more growing here and then some on the other side. So Alice's Dream, and I love the purple coloring. How about you? Do you like the purple coloring on some of these tomatoes? Go ahead and post a comment below and let me know. Okay, this one is Dwarf Wild Fred. He is an indeterminate dwarf tomato. And right now he's already topping, that's a 3-foot pole, which is really only about 2 feet by the time that you think that it's sunk in the ground and whatnot. But this is still, you know, a pretty good sized plant for being a dwarf, especially being grown in a 5-gallon container. And as we can see, I have little tomatoes forming on Dwarf Wild Fred. So looking forward to tomatoes from it. Here's another of my Stormin Norman plants. Last time, if you remember, he wasn't to the top of the 6-foot pole. Well, guess where he is right now? He's pretty much to the top of the 6-foot pole. And I have tomatoes galore. So I have these. I have these. More over there. More flower trusses. And got more down here. I had a truss that actually kind of broke because it had too many tomatoes on it. And I have a truss down here where it looks like I've got at least one ripe tomato off of it. So, yeah, oh, and here's another truss over there. So this is going to produce a ton of cherry-sized tomatoes. So this is Stormin Norman. This is Jochalos, and it is a miniature tomato with miniature fruit. I have it growing in like a 1-gallon bag or grow bag, and it's doing okay. It is a determinate, like I said, and it looks like it's still growing some, and it's setting out plenty of blossoms. So we'll see if this one tastes better than the one that I grew inside hydroponically. Okay, here is my third of my Earl's Faux tomatoes. And this one had no tomatoes on it 2 weeks ago. And now we have some here. I have some growing right up here. I think I have some forming right in here, some forming right up there. So I'm getting tomatoes finally off this one. I was beginning to wonder if I ever would. Okay, 2 more plants to go in the backyard, and this one is Girl's Weird Thing. Okay, you can see my like an 8-foot stake back there, or at least 7 feet stake. Yeah, it's doing pretty well, and you can see I've got tomatoes forming. Oh, probably 5.5, well no, I'm 5.5 feet tall, so maybe 6 feet up. More up about maybe not quite 6 feet. And let's take a look further on down. And I have a really cat-faced tomato here. I mean, isn't this just totally weird looking? Probably a fasciated blossom where 2 kind of grew together. Here's one that's more normal looking, if I can get it in focus. There we go. This one's a little bit more normal looking. Not a whole lot on this particular plant. Oops, looks like I've got one back here. Not a whole lot on this plant. I think I may have to top it some because it's just growing with abandon, and I'd like it to produce a few more tomatoes. On to the last one in the side yard. My last one in the side yard is Mr. Vorlon, who I've nicknamed Kosh, and this time I zip tied 2 6-foot tomato stakes together, and yeah, he's probably a good 7 feet at the moment. And if you can see, and I'll get a little bit closer, I've got tomatoes forming probably about 7 feet off the ground. More here, more there, and there. And of course I have some coming on down, and then my biggest one is the lowest one, and that's this guy here. So yes, I am going to top this tomato, and I do have a video that I'm putting out shortly on how to top tomatoes. I'm probably not going to top this particular branch just because I want to see how high it's going to grow. But this one back here, I will top. Okay, on to the front yard. In front, I have this tomato growing, and I will have to say I have no clue as to what it is. Before I said I thought it was indeterminate. Last video I said, oh no, it's determinate, and it's continuing to grow, so I have no idea what this plant is. It has plenty of tomatoes though. So if I go on further down, you can see more inside and more. Yeah, plenty of tomatoes off this one. I would love to know what it was that I planted, and that is why you should always label your tomato plants when you plant them. Now I know that this one is called Dwarf Arctic Rose, and as you can see I have lots and lots of tomatoes on it. It's leaning at the moment, even though I have it with a good sized 3-foot stake, because we had a windstorm and everything a few nights back, so I've got to restake him. But this one has lots and lots of tomatoes. They're all fairly good size. Let's see some of the bigger ones, if we can get seeing. So they're pretty good size for a determinate tomato. And once again, this is Dwarf Arctic Rose. Ah, here's my little red robin, and guess what? It is finally starting to ripen some fruits. So I see 2 that look like they're pretty close. There's another one that's ripening. So finally I'm going to get some tomatoes off this. Now I have it growing in a 1-gallon pot, and this is on my front porch. And I tell you, this little plant is a champ, and I am definitely growing it again next year. Okay, one more to go from my front yard. Sorry about the view between the posts, but this one is my second Jochalos plant. It's kind of leaning. We can see it's leaning over, and I haven't really put it on a post yet. It has some tomatoes. It's not nearly as productive as like Red Robin, and this one has had much better growing conditions than Red Robin. So I'm still in the category of waiting to be impressed by this plant. Thanks once again for joining me. This is Gail from Gail's Gardening. If you enjoyed this, thumbs up, and please like and subscribe. But I want to ask you a question first. Which of the tomatoes did you like best? Did you like something like Stormin Norman, Girl's Weird Thing, the humongous Vorlon, or the Blue Beauty that I revived, or one of the dwarfs? Which one do you like? Alright, so in another couple of weeks we'll do another tomato tour and see what else is happening. But meanwhile, this is Gail from Gail's Gardening saying have yourself a great day and keep on growing.